من الناس ولا يستخفون من الله وهو معهم إذ يبيتون ما لا يرضى من القول وكان الله بما يعملون محيطا. And it's a sign of course, signs of nifaq, is where publicly you're one thing, but privately you're a whole another thing. So you may worship Allah for show. You may worship Allah only when you're with your friends, when it's like Friday night, Saturday night, you're at the masjid. You do your salah, but when you're alone, where are you? When you're at work, where are you when it comes to that? The second type of groups of people are individuals that are the opposite. Alone at home, they're comfortable fasting and praying and worshiping Allah Azza wa Jal. They're very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But especially these days, publicly they don't. Whether it is out of fear of the Islamophobes, out of fear of criticism, look at now we have, like 60 different senators talking about we want to destroy and remove and deport all Muslims. It's becoming so normal. The attack on Islam, the attack on Muslims has become so horrific that I've seen many sisters that are afraid to wear hijab in public, brothers that are afraid to even act Muslim in public because of fear of consequences, a fear of judgment, fear of attack, fear of this and that and the fourth. If you're not amongst us, say alhamdulillah, it's a blessing to have. But that is the reality of people, that people are now becoming afraid of showing their deen publicly. These congressmen, these politicians, they're now publicly saying, we are not afraid of being called Islamophobes. But then if we say anything close to the J word, Jews, you're automatically anti-Semitic. You're canceled, you're attacked, you can lose your job, you can lose your career, you can lose a lot of things. People are now becoming afraid of this movement. And it always brings me back to the fact that, and this we'll talk about it in our third duty out of the 4 duties, but Allah in the Quran, when He praises His righteous servants, He says, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Who else is better and could be better than the one who calls to Allah and does good and proudly says, وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu warḍah, he has a very beautiful statement, a quote. He says, نَحْنُ قَوْمٌ أَعَزَّنَ اللَّهُ بِالْإِسْلَامِ. We are a nation that Allah has praised and blessed and honored with Islam. فَإِنْ ابْتَغَيْنَ الْعِزَّةَ فِي غَيْرِهِ أَذَلَّنَ اللَّهُ. That if you go seek that pleasure and pride elsewhere, Allah will humiliate you. Let's be realistic. Look at our youth today. Look at who their role models are. Look at how they get their haircuts. Look at how they dress. Look at the shoes they wear, the clothing they wear, the way they talk, the way they walk. The reality of the matter. Who are their role models today? Who do we take pride and pleasure in? And that is the true reality of why we are just sadly so weak as American Muslims. We're such a weak minority. Look at, I always bring this up, subhanAllah. The LGBT community, the alphabet community. These guys showed up literally, 7 minutes ago? And they have an entire month of June, Pride Month, dedicated to them. They fought for their rights. They believed in what they wanted. They did so much. And we as Muslims who have been in America for over 100 years, we cannot even get 2 days of the year off for Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. Be a proud Muslim. As a Muslim American in America, our duty is to act like Muslims, is to be proud to be Muslims, is to rightfully and properly represent what Islam really is. Our second duty as a Muslim in America. So the first one is our relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal and acting as Muslims. The second one, our second duty is our da'wah obligations. Our da'wah obligations is, a lot of people think that calling to Islam or becoming a da'iyah or teaching people the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal is the job of the imam or a scholar. That one imam that you have, wherever it may be, whether it's in this community or other communities, that imam has an entire community of 1,000, 2,000 people he has to take care of and educate and teach, his family, his classes, his khutbahs. How do you expect that one person to go and teach the non-Muslims outside about Islam? The Prophet ﷺ, as great and the greatest da'iyah and the greatest imam and the greatest leader, couldn't do it alone. He needed an army of sahaba, of men, of rijal, of women that could go and preach and teach this deen. Islam came to us today because of chain of narrations, because the sahaba went and passed it on to different generations, different countries, different cities, different ethnicities. And it kept coming down and down and down, generation after generation. 14 generations later, we have this deen today. One, because Allah has promised that He will protect and preserve this deen. إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We will protect this deen. So this deen will be preserved with or without you. We are all ambassadors to this deen. After the Prophet passed away, you may think that you know this deen right now and you're good to go, but it's not you. Well, it is you we're worried about, to be honest. But most importantly, your children, and your grandchildren. What deen are they going to receive 50, 60 years from today? If we ourselves are barely hanging on to our deen as the younger generation today, calling and teaching people about Islam is an obligation to us. The Prophet ﷺ tells us, قَالَ بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. The ulama, they say بَلِّغُوا is taklif, it's a command, it's an obligation. Anni is tashrif, it's a sharaf. Who are you preaching upon? It's the Prophet ﷺ. It's the best that you can deliver upon and teach from. Walau ayah is takhfif, it's simplicity. You don't have to be a scholar. But think of it this way. Think of it when your neighbors, your co-workers, your friends that you've known for 15, 20, 30 years, and on Judgment Day, Allah Azza wa Jalla asks them about why they haven't entered into Islam. Imagine what their response would be when they say, I've known Ali, Ahmed, Hussam, Muhammad, Ahmed, whoever, for 15, 20 years, and I've never heard about Islam from them. They've never said anything to us about it. We have and we hear every single day different news channels talking so much garbage, attacking Islam. We're sitting at home in our couches angry, frustrated, maybe commenting here and there on a post or two. The reality is, what are we doing about it? We need to go and teach the world what Islam really is, what our deen really is about. It took one guy to get shot twice in Australia a couple of days ago for some individuals to say, wow, that's the beauty of Islam. Well, of course, others that really hate Islam are still trying to say that he's not even a Muslim, he's Christian. Oh, he's this from that place, or he's from that place. The amount of hatred that they have for Islam. Because in their minds, Islam is just filled with cruelty. It's so terrible. It's terrorism. It's killing. It's destruction. There's no way there could be a hero that could do this. From their perspective, Islam is consistently evil. There's just no good Muslims out there. As an American Muslim living in the US, wallahi, it is every single one of us' obligation and duty to truly learn what our deen is and teach it to the world and lead by example. When the Prophet, when Umar ibn Khattab, he says, "Kunu du'atan wa antum samitun." Be callers to Allah while you are quiet. Just your actions is enough. That man that stopped the murder and the killing in Australia did not say a single word, and if he did, we didn't hear him. The video that everyone's seen was him tackling someone, disarming him, and that was it. His actions is what made thousands of Muslims in the last week and a half, or the last week, convert to Islam. He didn't have to be a scholar. He didn't have to be an imam. He didn't have to do anything. But it's sadly enough that our actions today have made even the Muslims themselves. The Muslims themselves, we dislike each other. Sheikh, how many times, Sheikh Yasir, how many times have you heard personally, for example, like whether it's a masjid or a house being built, and the person building the house is complaining that the delay and the overcharge is by a Muslim contractor. And that they will say, man, I prefer a non-Muslim contractor, they're more honest. Or even employees at work, you hear many people talking about, man, it's a Muslim, we're saying this, not them. We Muslims are saying about each other that these Muslims are doing us wrong, they're lying to us, they're this and that and the fourth, that we ourselves would rather go to non-Muslims. You've all heard this before, I would assume. But subhanAllah, when you think about Jews, one guy, there was a Jewish guy that they interviewed, I forgot his name, a really big name. And they asked him, they said, how is it that you Jews are all so wealthy and rich? And he said, because simply, whenever we need something, whether it's any business or any service, we always look for our Jewish providers that provide the service, and we give them business. We ourselves, subhanAllah, we need to work on that. There's so much work for us Muslims to do here in America, which brings me to our third duty, which is our civic and civil right obligation. Earlier we started commenting on who the alphabet community and how they fought for their rights because they believed in what they have. Yes, we may have fought in certain states for certain counties to have Eid off. And alhamdulillah, like Fairfax County in Virginia, where I moved from, they have Eid off for the entire county. Everybody's off. They made it a holiday. But it's still a struggle that the mass majority of Muslims are facing. And now with the crackdown against Muslims, when you think about it, how many Muslim activists do we have in the US today that we can think of? Well, maybe Omar Suleiman, Yasir Qadi, a few others from CARE maybe. How many do we have? I can tell you less than 10. Less than 10. And that's the reality. That's the sad reality that we have less than 10 people, or maybe 20, that are known out there that go and speak for the rights of Muslims. And now when the non-Muslims, Zionist regimes, they realized, and this is something, by the way, guys, I need us to be very, very, not only cautious of, this is a very serious matter. Right now, the attack from the Zionists and different congressmen and politicians against CARE. You guys have heard of that before? Have you guys heard about the attack towards CARE? The most terrifying part is the only line of defense and the strongest line of defense that Muslims in America have is CARE, believe it or not. And they're trying to tear it down from the top. This is how serious this whole situation is. And we're still here thinking about playing video games and sports and this and that and so on and so forth. Wallahi, it's not the time. Like we need young men who are passionate. September 10th of this year, an incident happened. Who remembers what incident happened September 10th of this year? Who was killed this year on September 10th? Charlie Kirk. How old was this guy? Does anyone know? He's 30 years old. 31, I think. Why was he so valuable? What made Charlie Kirk so valuable in the eyes of MAGA politicians, many, many, many people, and even Zionists? What was so valuable? What was so unique about him? No. That's also unique, but there's a lot of America first. That was it. That was it right there, yes. What he did, I can't think of one Muslim person that does what he did. The fact that he went from university to university focusing on the youth, why is that? A lot of us, fortunately, are, a lot of people look at the shabab, the youth today, as, they're young, they're still, we'll talk to them when they grow older, when they're a little bit more mature. But no, it's you guys in front of me right here that are the next generation that will carry the torch next. It's you guys that will be the next congressmen, inshallah, and politicians, or even president one day. It's you guys that will lead this country. It's you guys that will protect this deen. It's you guys that will do all of it afterwards. And we need to build a generation of shabab that are actually caring and passionate about this cause. Don't just think that it's a time that will pass and that's it. If there's no resilience during this crisis that we're facing, if there's no fight back, wallahi, there'll be nothing left to fight for. So no matter how young you think you are, you're not. Sahaba that were 14, 13, 12, 15, 17 was the highest you can think of. Usama ibn Zayd led an entire army. And today we can't even trust teenagers to go buy groceries for their parents. A list of grocery list. It's the reality. But the situation is becoming very, very difficult and very, very severe. And the Prophet ﷺ in a hadith, he says, لا يأتي زمان إلا والذي بعده شر منه. There isn't a time that will come except that it is worse than the one before. So if you think this is bad, it's only going to get worse. And if we can stabilize ourselves and ground ourselves in this country and speak up for our rights and know and understand what our rights are in America. I always say this, we are American Muslims and we are here to stay. Whether it is Afghanis or Somalis or Sudanis or Yemenis or this and that and the fourth, we are here to stay. And we have a right here like everyone else. And we need to understand this as this next generation of youngsters in front of me. We need to understand it, we need to learn it, we need to practice it. And moving on to the generation after you and you and you. So as a Muslim American, your third obligation in America is to fight and defend your deen. Who has ever heard of the Islamic debate between scholars that it is not permissible, or let me rephrase it, the permissibility for Muslims to live in a non-Muslim country? Who has heard that debate before? Has anyone ever heard that before? He says yes, yes, yes. And the ones who said it is allowed for Muslims to live in a non-Muslim country, they said that you must be able to freely practice your religion in peace, without any threats. That was their number one condition, that you're able to practice your deen freely. And two, that the fitan and trials and tribulations don't affect your iman. That's the reality. What is our answer to Allah when we have continued to be weak? And our response, Yawm al-Qiyamah, when we come and say, oh Allah, we were the minority? Because that's what a lot of Muslims say today. There is literally this Somali YouTuber who has 4 or 5 million followers, literally Muslim, who makes videos constantly telling us Muslims, and he's a Muslim as well in one of these states, telling us Muslims, don't overstay or something, don't overwelcome your stay here in America. We're a minority. He says the Muslims in New York, they're praying in the streets on Jummah and Eid, blocking the roads. The Muslims are doing this, the Muslims are doing that. You shouldn't do so. How would you feel if these people came to Dubai or Mecca and blocked the streets and worshipped, their Jesus? Some of the dumbest arguments in the history of humanity. But the reality is, his perspective, he said, we are a minority. And a lot of people, if they may not say, but they actually have this mentality that we're a minority, let's not overdo it. And you know what's ironic about that statement? Is Allah mentions in the Quran a same group of Muslims and believers that will come Yawm al-Qiyamah and say the same exact thing. Inna kunna mustad'afuna fil ard. Oh Allah, we were a minority. And what is the response from Allah Azza wa Jal? Alam takun ardullahi wasi'ah fatuhajiru fiha. Wasn't Allah's world wide enough for you to go somewhere else where you're not a minority? So if your excuse of not being a strong Muslim, a practicing Muslim here in the US, that you're a minority, then this is not where you belong. If you want to be here, then act like it, then fight for it, then defend it, then be proud of it. And that takes us to our fourth obligation and duty and final duty as Muslim Americans, and that is our humanitarian obligation as Muslims. This is not a fundraiser. We did that earlier in Jum'ah. But if you notice, a lot of these big masajids, whether it's Epic in Dallas, Texas, or Plano, they've been recently going through a lot of protests against their masjid in Epic City. But what did they do, subhanAllah, amidst the crisis and the protest? Not just Epic, I'm talking about hundreds of masajid and Muslims. They still provide food for the homeless, medical care this is all for non-Muslims. Food drives, back to school supplies. This is part of our da'wah. As Muslim American, we are still required. Islam shows us and teaches us that we are a one big family, that we stick together, we help and support each other. The Prophet when he first enters Medina, what is the first thing that he does and tells the Sahaba? He says, "Afshu salam, wa at'imu at-ta'am, wa sallu bil-layl wa an-nasu niyam, tudkhulu al-jannata bi-salam." Spread salam between you and peace. And feed the hunger. The hungry, feed them. And pray privately. You will enter Jannah in peace. Our jobs, we cannot always think about building our own wealth. It's always me. Yes, وَلِنَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ, you have rights for yourself. But there are millions and millions and millions, not just globally, but al-aqrabuna awla bil ma'ruf, those in our own backyards that are struggling, that need help. They can be Muslims, they can be non-Muslims. You, the shabab here, should do something. I'm not sure if you already do it or not, where you go downtown and see where the homeless people are. Have a truck filled with food and sandwiches, maybe once a month. Let it be something known about the Muslim community in San Diego, that once the third Saturday of the month, you cooked or bring 200, 300 sandwiches and go around town and just feed it to people. And watch how many tens and hundreds will come throughout the next couple of months or years today to your masjid and take shahada and join Islam, enjoy the beauty of this deen. The four duties that I mentioned are not mutually exclusive. They all intertwine together. And that, my brothers and sisters, is truly what it means to be a Muslim in America. Jazakumullah khair, inshallah. I'll open the floor for questions. I know it's a very sensitive topic, so if there's anyone that has any questions, please go ahead, inshallah ta'ala. Comments? Going once? Going twice? Subhanallah wa bihamdika. Sister in the back, I think you raised your hand. Did you have a question? No? Tfaddal. I couldn't understand the first question, to be honest. So I'm going to read it, and maybe it says, the inner instant fear you had from the guy you saw with the red coat in the mall, is that really controllable with proper trauma handling? It seems normal. Whoever sent this, if you can just please rephrase it. I honestly couldn't understand it, forgive me. Question number 2 is, can you repeat the 4 things, inshallah? We said 4 duties for us Muslims. 1 is our obligation as Muslims to act like Muslims, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to practice our deen. 2 is our da'wah obligations, teaching people about Islam, the world, the non-Muslim community around us, our neighbors, starting with our neighbors and friends, those that we know. Number 3 is our civic and civil rights obligation as Muslims to defend our rights in America, know our rights, fight for our rights. And 4 is our humanitarian obligation or humanitarian duties. Now, third one came up, how do we help advocate for when our Muslim communities that are being targeted, especially by the current administration, and deal in a proper way when attacked? So, a simple answer to that is, we fight hate with love. We respond with peace. Unless you're physically attacked and you're harmed physically, or you're about to be harmed physically, that's when you are and should defend yourself. Words will come out. They will insult you. They will say things to instigate. They came in front of Epic Masjid Saturday the 13th of December, well, last week almost. And they were showing signs, pictures of a pig with a man's head on it. And they said, this is Muhammad and this pig is Aisha. I know, alhamdulillah, I was not there. I could be an imam, I'm a leader, but I don't know how I could tolerate that, to be honest. And maybe it's best that I wasn't there. I was actually in Dallas for a different event at Valley Ranch Masjid. I knew, I said, I'm not gonna go. Some things would insult and are hurtful. But what the Epic community did was amazing. Like I said, they had over 500 boxes of food, and they were distributing it to the non-Muslims on the streets. People were coming in, getting food and leaving. So I understand the current administration is doing more than it can and all that it can to attack the Muslims. The Zionist regime, they actually hired the number one media company in the world to try to fix their view in the eyes of the world, because now the world literally, they loathe them for what they've done. And the company told them, they said, listen, you cannot fix what the world has seen. You will never be able to fix it. But your best bets is to find a different narrative. Find something else. The same way we have right now with the whole Epstein file, every other day it comes out. Something big comes up from the orange guy to distract the world from the Epstein files. In their situation, the same thing happening here, where they realize that they cannot fix their image, and they will never be able to fix their image, the genocide that they've done. What they're now doing is making the entire world and paying these congressmen and politicians to literally make slanderous and attacks towards Muslims literally out of nowhere. Have you thought about that? Nothing happened. Well, the shooting in the 2 National Guards, yes, but even prior to that, there was vicious attacks towards Muslims, and they used that opportunity. Who knows, maybe it was even planted by them. He was with an intelligence agency for quite some time. But at the end, I'm not a conspiracy theorist person, but at the end of the day, they're using that right now to attack the Muslims and trying their best to claim that they're going to deport them and kick them out. So it is vicious attacks. I say again, know your rights. Know your rights. I always say that Masajid, honestly speaking, should train and have a training for community members on how they should react in case of, like, you should bring a professional, maybe even like the police or someone from any law enforcement agency, how people should handle being arrested. Because they will make you under pressure or may trick you to saying things, and a lot of people, they hear their rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do will be held against you in the court of law, the whole Miranda rights situation. But then they come and ask you afterwards, if you want to get out of here faster, answer our questions. And now all you think about is they're in that state of panic. You just want to get out. And you talk and you incriminate yourself. And that will be used against you in the court of law. People need to understand these things. A lot of people don't know their rights. A lot of people, they struggle, they mess up severely after being held or arrested. And then at the end of the day, what ends up happening is We have to figure out massive attorneys or big to get them out of that mess. People need to be trained and educated in advance. So in response, we fight hate with love. We show them and we continue to do da'wah. If you think what we're going through is tough, imagine what the Prophet ﷺ went through in Taif, in Mecca. Nothing in comparison to what he's going through. This is a natural ibtila. Allah in the Quran says, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do you really think that you're going to declare and become a believer without you being tested? Allah says, وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّ الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ. And we have tested the ones before them. Why? فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. That Allah Azza wa Jal, to see those who are sincere and believe in what they call for versus the ones that do not. We'll take one final question. I know people are getting really tired and sleepy. Let's see. Physical, psychological, social, spiritual. I have no idea what that is either. Physical, psychological, social, spiritual. Is it true that if we die on this land in the West America, is this concerning for our afterlife? Will we be held accountable for not migrating? Not necessarily. No, you will not. Some people, I remember, like this is a real story that happened, a real dialogue that happened, but it's also a funny dialogue, where in the past there were extremists that would say, people that die in non-Muslim country are going to Jahannam. So once there was a dialogue between an imam and one guy that was very ignorant, but subhanallah, even though he was ignorant, Allah put wisdom in his mouth for seconds. The imam was telling him, anyone that dies in non-Muslim country will go to Jahannam. He wasn't an imam, he was one of those du'at. And sometimes du'at are not even knowledgeable, to be honest. There's a difference between a da'i and an imam. And the guy asks, he says, well, where should we die? He said, Mecca or Medina. And then he asked him, he said, where did Abu Jahl die? And Abu Lahab. They didn't die in the West, they died in Mecca and Medina. And they're still going to Sayasla, not on that Lahab. So it doesn't matter, honestly. It comes back to how you live your life in this dunya. Honestly speaking, there are Muslims here in America that are 10 times, 100 times better than Muslims that are living in Muslim countries. People that were born and raised here. I am a product of the US, I'm not saying I'm perfect. And Yasir Siddig is a product of the US, Umar Salman is a product of the US. A lot of these mashayikh are product of the US, born and raised here. So no, the short version of the answer is no. I'm talking about what I mentioned earlier is if you lived your life not able to practice or were not willing to practice Islam, and you kept telling yourself that we're a minority, I'm afraid, I can't, this and that and the fourth, then yes, Allah will ask you, Qiyamah, why didn't you migrate? How can we become more proud of our faith instead of trying to hide it out of fear or being criticized or attacked? Being proud of your faith, I honestly don't know how else to tell you to be proud of your faith. People are proud of what they believe in. If you're not proud of your faith, then you truly deep inside, there is something missing, there's something wrong where you do not believe in your deen properly. What leads you to be proud of your religion is knowing your religion, and that requires knowledge. The people that have doubts in their own deen, in their own faith, is truly because of lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge, and people always think, or tend to think that learning about this deen, or learning our deen is something that is optional. It's not optional. It is not a secondary thing or a plan C or D or F. People come and attend these classes or halaqat and they think that they're doing themselves or other people a favor by attending. Learning your deen is an obligation. There's a hadith in Sahih Muslim, Prophet ﷺ says, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمُ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. Seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. You have to learn it. And it's not something that you get to pick and choose when you want to come and when you don't want to come. So those basics of your deen that you do not know is what leads you to doubt your deen. And if you doubt your deen, how can you be proud of something that you yourself doubt? So educating yourself about your deen, learning it more, being more spiritually firm and knowledgeable about your deen is what will lead you to be proud. And once you know the beauty of Islam, you will truly be proud of it, subhanAllah. I will take one more question, inshallah ta'ala. Is it necessary for us to eat dhabiha to maintain a halal diet in the West? I'm going to assume. Let me not assume anything. Can you please rephrase this question, whoever asked the dhabiha question? Is it necessary for us to eat dhabiha to maintain a halal diet in the West? Well, first of all, non-dhabiha does not mean that it's haram. Non-dhabiha is not haram. I know a lot of people are about to, some people may actually explode out of anger, like, what did you just say today? And then we got these folks over here, happy, about to go to McDonald's right after the lecture. It's not. In reality, it's not. The meat of Ahl al-Kitab is permissible. And the Prophet ﷺ was asked by Aisha in Bukhari, she said, "O Prophet of Allah, we don't know that when they are slaughtering it, if they're mentioning Allah's name or not." And the Prophet ﷺ responds, he says, "Sammu antum wa kulu." You say Bismillah and eat. Now, I'm not going to say go out of your way to eat whatever. I'm simply saying if you have halal options, go and eat halal options. It's better, without a shred of a doubt. But do not come and tell anyone else that what they're eating elsewhere is haram. It is not haram. It is 100% fine. And if you're traveling, I'm a traveler, and I travel a lot, sometimes by car, from state to state, 4 or 5 hours, and I'm literally on the highway. I am not going to go out of my way 30 miles to look for a halal restaurant. I will stop at McDonald's or any restaurant and get food. It's permissible, and I will eat it and I'll go. It is not a daily thing that you're doing. And again, even if it was, it is not haram. Haram is an Islamic ruling that cannot be given out slightly at all or at all. The most that the mashayikh now say is that it's makruh. Avoid it if you have halal options. But then comes the question of what makes it halal? Because kosher is halal. Kosher is Jewish. So what is your definition of halal? Is it the slaughtering part? Is it the hand slaughter? What is it? That's a topic for a fiqh topic for another day, inshallah, that I prefer to indulge in, because we can. There's actually a debate on YouTube, a discussion between Yasir Siddig and Nasib Birjaz, like 10, 15 years ago. It's like an hour-long discussion on YouTube. I would refer you guys back to that conversation, inshallah ta'ala. I think we will stop here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بارك الله فيكم جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.